Hello, everybody. I am so excited. So, are we still live? Yeah, we're still live. Okay. Y'all know technical, not my thing. But I'm so excited about today's presenter because, I love some a lot. No, I love them all, but I love some more than others. Dr. Nick Silveri, he's in my top 5 favorite of all time. And it's not just because he introduced me to my favorite author of all time.
That is a little
bit. A lot.
There's a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Right.
Which is why we're just a hair late starting, because we were just talking about our mutual friend, that wonderful author, Mr. Joey Coleman. Mm-hmm. But I want to let y'all know that when it comes to marketing your practice, there is so much information that you really need to know. And I'm one of the first ones to say, I'm just not as plugged into some. This is not one of my strengths. It's definitely one of my weaknesses. Every time I talk to Dr. Silveri, I learned something incredibly new that I'm able to apply to helping us to promote and engage our audience, either on our website or in advertising. And it is like an incredible blessing. Not to mention, he is so very active on social media. He shares so much information with his audience that it just kind of blows my mind, all of the information that he shares with everybody. So he is a chiropractor. That's why I'm calling him Doctor. But he is a chiropractor. And it is through his own experience in marketing his practice and his incredible success that led to him starting Leverage Media. He's just incredibly phenomenal. And on top of that, he's a damn good speaker, just so good and engaging, which is what we love. So, Nick, I'm turning it over to you so you can share all that amazing knowledge with our audience today.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Christy. I always love being on the ChiroHealthUSA webinars, whether as an attendee or as a presenter. So I'm excited to talk about my favorite topic, which is content marketing for chiropractors. Let me share my screen here. Christy, can you just let me know that you can see this?
I sure can.
All right, perfect. All right, so the reason why I reached out to Christy and I was like, hey, with COVID going on, right now is really the time for chiropractors to be stepping into their role as the leaders of natural healthcare and really to be the primary care doctors for our patients that are hungry for the correct information. They're hungry for, the truth, like how this actually works, how their bodies actually work, how their nervous system actually works. And the way that we're able to get that information out is through content marketing. So this is what I'm passionate about. This is how I market my own practice. This is how I market my own brand, my agency. Our agency helps chiropractors we probably help more chiropractors create more content than any company on the planet. And it's because our mission is to get the message of chiropractic out there. BJ Palmer was the developer of chiropractic, and he was the original content marketer when it came to chiropractic information. And I just think that if all of us individually as chiropractors even did 10% of what BJ would do right now, we'd be at 90% utilization instead of 10%. So I want to talk about the 5 things you can do right now to grow your practice and position yourself as a local authority. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get into a lot of like real hardcore tactics on you need to make these videos, or here's how to run an Instagram ad, or here's what to do on YouTube. All of those things are easily findable on Google, on YouTube. You can get anything that you want to figure out. You can Google it or go into YouTube and find a very in-depth training on what exactly you do. What I want to pass along to you are the things that I think are really the most important to creating consistent content, because that's what it all comes down to. You shooting one video one time is not going to help you out to grow your practice. What is going to help you grow your practice is being consistent and being relevant. So when I talk about content marketing, I want you to think of this as a rest of your career endeavor. I'm not going to give you any hacks, any tricks of how to double your practice in the next 90 days. Content marketing by design does not work that way. Usually it takes between 2 to 3 years for people to really, really see the massive impact that content marketing can do for them, and that's if they're being consistent. So what I want to do is I want to try to help you get set up for how you can be creating consistently long term and not get stuck where a lot of people do, where after 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, they just give up. So first I want to talk about the state of the union of chiropractic marketing. So when people hear that I have a digital marketing agency, they immediately think Facebook ads. They think $21 new patient special, and just like, you know, the stuff that just doesn't make you feel that good about marketing chiropractic. And the reason why is because it's not marketing. That is sales. That is bottom of the funnel, just trying to find anybody that is in the market for chiropractor right now. That is really what Google is more for. What we can use Facebook and Instagram and YouTube for is really to show up in people's feeds without them having to find us on their own. The Facebook ads, where you're making somebody an offer to come in as a new patient, there's a place for that, but it's a very small percentage of where your marketing effort and budget should be going to. So when I say the state of the union of chiropractic marketing, I do not think the state of our union is that strong. So hopefully we can help to strengthen it today. So there are 3 types of content. I'm going to give you a couple of tips for those of you that do want some tactics on each one of them. So there's first and foremost, there's video. I think the video is, number 1, it's the easiest to make. Number 2, it is the most engaging. And number 3, it allows you to do the most, like retargeting, and it gives you a lot more opportunities than say like a blog post or a podcast. So with video, the thing you have to really decide is, am I going to do long form or am I going to do short form? So videos can be really impactful for things like this. This is a long form piece of content. This is a webinar. Now I had to partner with somebody who already had an audience and already had a list. If I wanted to promote this myself, I would have to spend money to get people to register, or I'd have to send it out to my email list or put it out to my audience on social. So with longer form content, you're going to have to get somebody to take action. You're going to have to get them to do something that you want them to do, register, things like that. Or you can go short form, bite-sized pieces of content that are very easy for people to consume and that you can force into people's news feeds. So what I recommend, if you are looking for the short form, easier pieces of content to create, is focus in on 3 to 5 minute pieces of content that focus on one thing. So when chiropractors make videos, they like to go down a lot of rabbit holes. They'll start over here and they'll end up way over here. That turns into a 7, 9, 10-minute video. The reason why I think 3 to 5 minutes is really key is, number 1, when somebody looks at the video, like say they click on it or they hover over it, they can see how long the video is. If it's anything beyond 5 minutes, that starts to become like an investment of their time. So they're gonna have to really care about that content. 3 to 5 minutes is short enough to where it's like the headline can grab them, and then you can get them for at least the first 30 seconds. And if you can get them hooked from there, then they may listen to the rest of it. The other reason why 3 to 5 minutes is so important is because it's the amount of time that I think one piece, like one little data point, can be dove into somewhat deeply. If you do too broad of a topic, 3 to 5 minutes is not long enough. But if you stay very focused on 3 exercises you can do first thing in the morning with low back pain, that is something very specific. That should take anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes to show, right? So those bite-sized pieces, not only can you force them into people's news feeds by boosting those out or paying for advertising, but you're going to be more likely to get consumption from that. The other thing is, and we'll talk about this more later, is that you can create custom audiences so that you can start to warm people up if you did want to put them into a longer form piece of content like a webinar. Having people that have engaged with the short bite-sized pieces is really valuable. And if you're thinking about doing video and you're worried about equipment, your phone, as long as you've gotten a phone in the last 3 years, it's going to be good enough for your audio and for your video. The cameras are great on there. They can shoot in 4K now. Don't get hung up on, well, I don't have the right camera, I don't have the right setup. Don't worry about that. Just get started. The next one is going to be text. And I think this is probably the most overlooked tactic for chiropractors is blog posts. So blog posts are so vital because they are normally evergreen content. So if you're creating blog posts around conditions, what I mean by evergreen is that once you create them, they can sit out there forever. And if they're the most relevant search term, it doesn't matter if they were written a day ago, a year ago, or 10 years ago, Google is looking for the most relevant piece of content that it can show to someone. So if you are, and I can promise you there are not a lot of chiropractors writing in-depth blogs that are that relevant. So if you can actually take the time and invest the hour or two to sit down and write a blog that is not 300 words just to get some keywords onto your website, but is actually an in-depth article that is going to explain to someone that has a condition, that has a problem, that has a question, that you can answer every angle of that issue. If you do that, Google is going to reward you with traffic when people are searching for that content. So blog posts are nice, and they're a lot different than like social media videos, because when you do a video on Facebook, once you stop spending money on it, it basically has gone into the universe. With blog posts, you can not only use those videos to support the blog so that the videos can start to live on longer than just however long you have your ad spend, but also Google is, again, going to be showing those to people years from now when they're looking for local content. And that's another key, is you got to make sure you keep these blogs local. If you're doing a knee pain blog, you're not going to beat out the Mayo Clinic on knee pain. So you have to stay focused to knee pain doctor, knee pain treatment of your city, so that Google knows that this is going to be really relevant for somebody who's looking for knee pain in, say, Springfield, Illinois, where my practice is at. And then the third type of content is audio. So this is going to be your podcast. Now, I think that this is probably the least effective of the three for a local chiropractor, but it's the easiest one to add on if you're already doing video. So if you're already doing video, you can basically strip out the audio and have yourself a podcast. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can make a podcast successful as we go through these tips. So I wanted to show you what the impact of content marketing can actually have on a local practice. So my practice is in a town of 110,000 people. We've got about 80 chiropractors. And the year that I started creating content on a consistent basis, meaning 2 videos and 1 blog every week, all 52 weeks of 2016, that was the first year that we did it. 2014 was the last year that we did no content. We had never done content up to that point. I didn't compare it to 2015 because we started to do a little bit of content at the end of the year, so I wanted it to be a pure sample. But the difference between 2014 and 2016 was only the content that we were promoting on Facebook and Instagram, and also the blogs that we were putting on our website. Everything else was the same. We were still running the same amount of Google ads. We were still #1 organically when you searched for a chiropractor in our area. The only difference was the content. So I pulled out, so these lines, the blue lines are basically the amount of people that visited our website on a daily basis throughout 2016 is the blue, and then the orange is 2014. So I pulled out 3 really relevant pieces of data: the users, the sessions, which is basically the amount of times that people came, and then the page views. So the users went from 3,400 to 9,400. So that means 6,000 extra people in 2016, individual users, came to our website versus 2014. Now the really big important part of those 6,000 people is because our content was very hyper local focused. I would guess that 90+% of those 6,000 people were people within a 10-mile radius of our practice. The sessions also went from 4,500 to 13,000, so they tripled as well. Meaning, if you see the difference between the 9,400 and the 13,000, that means that people were coming back on a more regular basis because we were putting new content out there. And not only were we just posting it to our website, but we were also boosting it out onto Facebook and Instagram to draw people in. But the most important number is the page views. So in 2014, we had 13,000 page views. In 2016, we had 52,000. You'll notice, though, that the page views 4x'd, whereas the users and the session numbers 3x. The reason why is we were able to draw them in with the content but then they started to search around. Maybe they read another blog about that topic. Maybe they looked at our special offers. Maybe they looked at the services that we were offering. And that's how content can start to get people to act more like referrals because they're discovering you, right? You get them in with a piece of content that they create or that they care about. And then once they get onto your website, now all of a sudden they're going to start to look around, and when they feel like they discover you, they walk into your office a whole lot different than if they just scrolled past a $21 new patient number or offer. And I'll show you one last thing I want to mention is you'll notice as 2016 goes on, as we are more consistent with the content, that you'll notice that the blue lines get further and further away from the orange lines. And the reason why is that consistency. I talked about that, 2 to 3 years is about what it takes for you to really start to see a significant difference when you're doing consistent content marketing, but it can already start in those first 3 months, in the 6 months, in the 12 months. It's just that now our page views are probably a whole lot more than what they were even in 2016. And then obviously all chiropractors care about, yeah, but what about new patients, Nick? Like, did that actually turn into anyone walking through the door? So these are our 4 buckets that we really track in our practice with new patients. And I show 2018 because 2016, 2017, and 2018, we were super consistent. So this is that 2 to 3 year mark that I was talking about, that's when you start to really see a difference. So in the patient referrals, basically exactly the same. In 2014, our second biggest way of getting new patients was spinal screenings. By 2018, it basically been cut in half. Now it's probably down to 0, just because there are no spinal screenings that we're going to be able to go out and do in the near future. There's not going to be big events at the expo centers that we can go set up a booth. So even when I dropped basically half of my number 2 source of new patients, I still wasn't hurt, and we were able to grow our new patient numbers. Our miscellaneous, which is just like the catch-all of how we get new patients, if they walk by or, their doctor sent them over, their attorney sent them over, whatever it is, that basically stayed the same. But obviously the biggest difference is in Google, Facebook, and Instagram or internet. That's where anybody that says they found us online went from 85 to 280. And even though we lost about half of our number 2 way of getting new patients, we were able to grow our total new patients over 25%. And now we're probably in the 720 to 750 range in terms of like how many new patients we have on a yearly basis. So now we're gonna get into the 5 tips that I think are really gonna like help you create that consistent, relevant content. And the first step is that you have to commit. You have to decide that it's actually something that you wanna do. And the way that I think of it is, this is our community service. This is what we're gonna be doing for the rest of our careers. Like, there's never going to be a time where we don't create consistent, relevant content. So the first step is that you really have to commit. So you have to decide to be helpful. You've got to make it more about them than you. So whenever I do my strategy sessions, so the first step of like working with us as an agency is the strategy session. So I do it similar to our day 1 and day 2 in the practice. So day 1, the strategy session, is all about you. And we look at what we call your big 5, your website, Facebook, Instagram, Google, and YouTube. And we see like, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What are opportunities you're missing out on, and kind of how it all works together. What I always notice, and not always, but I'd say 90% of the people that have started to create content is they stop. They stop after 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, a year. But usually when they get to me, they're not creating consistent content. About 10% are, but 90% are not. And almost everybody has tried at some point. I can see kind of the graveyard of videos in their YouTube channel, or I'll scroll down, 6 months ago where you did that one Facebook Live. And I usually ask people like, what is it that made you stop? And I get one of 2 responses. First is they don't like the way that they look on camera. They don't know what to say. They don't know, or they don't like how their voice sounds, and they're focusing more about themselves. The other excuse I'll say is they weren't able to get anything from it. And so when your intention of creating content is just, what can I get from it? What new patients did I get from this video? You're bound to lose, because every video builds on the one before that. It's kind of like adjustments. Like, content creation is a lot like chiropractic. Like, a lot of all of my more problematic clients are just like problematic chiropractic patients. It's like they want things right away. They don't want to do the things you tell them to do outside of the office. They always know better than you do. And so it's when you start to make it about you is when it becomes difficult to be consistent with your content. When you make it about the people that you're creating the content for, and you look at it as that community service, now all of a sudden things become a whole lot easier. So first you have to decide to be helpful. Next is you've got to make a schedule. Now there's two kinds of schedules. There's the schedule of actually creating it, and then there's the schedule to distribute it. The distribution of the content should be on a consistent basis, whether it's once a week, 3 times a week, every day, once a month. Once a week is like the minimum that I think you should be creating content, whether it's videos or blogs. But that's more of the distribution. On the creation side, unless you are a natural content creator, so there's a lot of like younger chiropractors that are just really good at creating content. They enjoy it. They wish they were influencers. Like that's kind of like their dream. They grew up with it. They're very native to it. I'm 42 years old, I think. Yeah, 42. People that are older than me they even have a tougher time with it. I didn't get my first email address until I was a freshman in college. So it's not as if I grew up with it. It's a lot like, like nobody grows up driving, but you learn how to drive. If you are not a natural content creator, I recommend that you batch your content. But you need to, and what I mean by batch your content is make a bunch of it in one sitting versus trying to do something every day or every week. What happens is you get behind schedule and then you start to feel bad about it. Then you start to avoid it and then it just stops happening. So on the creation side, unless you love doing it, unless you're just pulling your phone out and creating content on the fly, create a schedule where you can batch your content, whether it's for a week, whether it's for a month, whether it's for a quarter, and get it done. Then with your schedule to distribute it, make that very consistent so that people get used to seeing you. And then the last thing is stick to it. Again, all the value comes with the consistency. Even if you're working through some tough stuff in the beginning and you're not that great at it, you're not getting any engagement, ignore the numbers. I never look at my engagement numbers. I just think about what is it that my ideal, and for my Dr. Nick brand, like when I'm doing stuff for Leverage Media, what is it that my ideal client wants? What do they need from me? What do they need to hear? Who do they need to hear it from? And I create content that I know my client so well because I'm my ideal client. And as a chiropractor, a lot of times we are our ideal patient, right? We care about our health. We want natural health care. We understand the value of an adjustment. So when you're creating content, think about who your ideal patient is and create content for that person, but you've got to stick to it because you're not going to have a massive marketing budget to flood your community with all of the content. So it's more important that you're consistent and you stay with it. Second tip, make the potential patient the hero. Remember that you are the guide. So this book, Building a Story Brand, if you've ever heard me do a webinar or speak, you've probably heard me talk about this book. I love Story Brand. I am a certified guide in the Story Brand process, so I help chiropractors create Story Brand custom websites that help really tell the story of their brand. So the idea with this book, if you haven't read it and you're thinking about doing content marketing, I think you should read it before you do any more pieces of content. What this does is it helps you not only clarify your message, but it allows you to stay focused on who it is that you're creating the content for. So when I say make the potential patient the hero and you the guide, too many chiropractors make themselves the hero, like they're the center of the story. But the patient, the potential patient, the person who's consuming the content, they're the ones that are the hero. So you have to create content that's going to be relevant and impactful to them. You are positioning yourself as the expert, the person who has already gone from point A to point B. You're helping guide them through the process. The more that you position yourself as the guide and the person watching your content or reading your content feels like they're the hero, the more that you're going to win. So remember to focus on what they want. So too many times chiropractors talk about the things that they want to talk about. What you need to do is think about if you're creating content on, say, low back pain, it's not about you explaining to them what you can always do for low back pain. It's more about what is it that they need to hear for them to start to understand how their body works, for them to start to be open to the message of how chiropractic can help them. So always stay focused on what are the things that they want. Nobody cares about a subluxation. No one cares about the history of chiropractic. What they care about is their problems, their family's problems, their family's health. And the more you can stay focused on that and show how you're going to be a conduit for better health, and for more expression of their innate, the better that you're gonna do with your content. This is another thing. Not every piece of content has to be about what it is that you do to fix the problem. So not every video has to be an adjustment video. Not every video has to be a ring dinger, right? What we wanna do is you have to think of content through a marketing funnel. So if any of you have ever heard of the term a marketing funnel, what that means is it's basically an upside down triangle to where it's wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. At the top of the funnel, you just need to let people know that you exist. Like, you just need to put the videos out. If they don't have low back pain, if their kids don't have ear infections, if they're not trying to lose weight, they're not gonna consume the content, but they're at least aware that you exist. If you just hide in your office, they'll never know that you exist. But that awareness type of content needs to be more broad. It needs to explain things to people. It needs to give them analogies and metaphors and make it understandable for why headaches aren't a normal problem. Even though they're common doesn't mean they're normal, right? The next stage, which is more narrow, that's the middle of the funnel. That's where the engagement happens. So the people that engage in the low back pain content at the top of the funnel, now we can give them more low back pain content in the middle of the funnel because they have engaged. Now at the bottom of the funnel, that's where you want to talk about what you do. That's the narrowest part of the funnel, and they had to have gone through the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel to get to the bottom of the funnel. That's where we want to talk about us as the solution. The other two stages, especially that middle stage, that's where you want to give them tips, tricks, advice, things that have nothing to do with what you do. Like, if you don't do yoga in the office, it doesn't hurt you to do a video on why yoga could help with their low back pain. It builds the trust so that when they do see what you do, they're going to trust that message more than if you never did the first video. Lastly, on this is don't be political. Like, unless you're trying to build a national brand, if you're trying to build a national or a worldwide brand and you're trying to become a thought leader, it's good to be polarizing. It's good to find your tribe. When you're a local healthcare provider, you should be concerned with everybody. You should be trying to speak about the truths that everybody is on board with. And I know that's becoming more and more difficult as time goes on, to where everything is becoming polarized and political. But the more that you can speak into the things that everyone agrees is truth. The chiropractic lifestyle, everyone agrees that is the way. No one thinks that they get healthier as they take more pills. They might like kind of think that now, like, oh, my MD wouldn't lie to me. They told me that I should. But after having like a 2-minute conversation, they're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Like, I am not healthier because of the pills, right? They're just like keeping me alive. But I think that we need to, as healthcare providers, we need to have a broad net, a big tent, try to get everyone in. And the more that you divide, you're turning, no matter what you believe, you're turning off half of the country by really getting political on one side or the other. So that's my message to avoid that kind of at all costs. Tip 3 is to collaborate. Find other people in your community that you can create content with, that you can work with, that you can start to get a little bit of their expertise and their shine onto your brand. So this is where the podcast really comes into play. And not just the podcast, but to do videos and then take the audio from that and use it on the podcast. But this is usually what people think of when they think of podcasts, is to be able to have other providers, other experts on into their content world. So if any of you follow Grant Cardone, he always talks about like, who has your money? So who has your patients? Who has the ideal people in your community that are also servicing the things that you want, the people that you want to service, right? So is it a yoga studio? Is it a gym? Is it a, an organic dentist? Is it a pediatrician? Who are the people that have your perfect patient? And how can you invite them into the content that you're creating? Now, normally, the easiest way to do that is to interview them. The problem I see with a lot of chiropractors when they interview people is that they just turn it into like, tell me the history of your business. No one cares about that. You have to think. So I have a podcast called Path to a Million Podcast that is specifically for helping chiropractors go from $0 to $1 million plus practice, right? So I bring on people that I think will be interested to that message, right? Or interesting to the people that want that message. So I bring on people that I am friends with. I bring on people that I know are successful in practice. And I don't really care that much about their individual story unless it pertains to who the listener is. I'm just trying to spend that 45 minutes to an hour pulling out as much value for the listener as I possibly can, right? I could spend hours hanging out with my friends and like we could laugh and yuck it up and talk about old stories. That's not that valuable to the listener. What is valuable is, okay, what did you do specifically to be so successful in this specific thing that Nick had you on for because he thinks you're an expert in this area? The other reason why it's important to collaborate is it becomes easier to create content. When you are the driver of all of the creation, it can become exhausting, especially if you don't love it. If you're not, if you've ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, he always talks about document, don't create. Documentation makes it much easier to create content because you're just kind of like living your truth. When you have to create content and you have to think about it and you have to plan it, if you're not naturally inclined to it, it can become like a mental burden. When you collaborate with people, it becomes much easier to create content, especially when you're interviewing them, because you can just be interested in them. You could put yourself into the place of your ideal patient. Your ideal patient. So when I do interviews on my podcast, what I'm doing is I'm trying to put myself in Dr. Nick, the chiropractic practice owner, shoes, not Dr. Nick, the leverage media marketing agency shoes. I already know most of the answers that they're gonna say. Most of these people I know personally, so I already know that we've already talked about this stuff. So the interview is not for me, it's for you. I know the things that they're really great at, and that's where I really want to go deep with them. And I want to drive as much value to the listener as possible. So the people that you already have relationships that you know are great at things, bring those people on and interview them. And if you can have an interview around a specific type of patient, it's going to be much easier to provide value than if you're just doing like a general podcast around like health or whatever. If you're doing it for, moms that want to raise a natural, healthy family, that is going to be a very easy niche to service because there's lots of people that service that niche. Now you can bring those people on and you can make sure that they give value to those moms. The other thing is that it builds trust faster. So say you are creating a podcast for moms that want to have a natural, healthy family. Bringing their pediatrician on as a guest, it basically transfers some of that trust from them to you. And what ends up happening, I've done enough of these interviews now, especially if you already have a relationship with them. I've done enough to where what happens is you spend the entire time building them up, talking about how great they are, promoting them. Then at the end, what ends up happening is it's the law of reciprocity. They want to reciprocate those kind words. So they'll say lots of nice stuff about you. Their patients are probably listening to them and they're like, well, if Dr. Susan says Nick's okay, then he must be okay, right? So it not only does it allow you to build that trust, but it also brings them into your world so that now that audience maybe comes for the Dr. Susan interview, but then they start to search around and they see, oh wait, there's a lot of content in here that is relevant to me. And then maybe they become a regular listener and eventually, hopefully, a new patient. The next step is, my favorite obviously, is to leverage what you're already doing. So content creation is hard enough to do, but if nobody sees it, if nobody hears it, if no one knows it exists, I can promise you that you are not going to do it just for the sake of doing it. Everyone stops because they're not able to see the results that they're looking for. The first thing that you've got to make sure that you're doing is you've got to spend money to distribute the content. So Facebook and Instagram were kind enough to go and gather everyone up for us. The problem is that it used to be that if you posted something, basically 100% of the people that followed your page would see it. And over time, that's gotten less and less and less and less and less. Now it's probably 10 to 15% that organically see any content that you post on your page. So your page, no one goes to your page, or very few people go to your Facebook page or your Instagram page. Instagram a little bit more than Facebook, but people don't really go there. They stay within their feed, right? So if Facebook's not serving it up to them, they're just not going to see it very much, right? So now if they engage with their content, with your content, they'll be a little bit more likely to see it than if they don't. But what's really valuable with Facebook and Instagram is not building up a bunch of likes, but it's the fact that they will allow you to push your content into people's feeds. Now, it's a little bit counterintuitive to chiropractors because they're so used to only spending money for those bottom of the funnel Facebook ad new patient offers, which it's fine. There's a place for that. But what's more important is that you're pushing the content out. So we try to follow an 80-20 rule. 80% of our ads that are going out are strictly content. 20% are lead generation, and it's not always like come into the office. It could be come to a workshop. Would you like to do a lunch and learn? We're having a dinner with a doc. There's lots of different things that you can do lead generation for. It doesn't always have to be about a first visit, but the content is what allows you to push that out into your community and start to build up that trust. The other part that you have to leverage is using the content that you're creating across different platforms. So when I talk about like the interviews that we do for Path to a Million podcast, I do those either in person with cameras or I'll do them via Zoom. I'd rather do them with cameras just because I like being in person. There's a better energy to it. So if you're local, I would recommend doing them in person as much as possible. Zoom, it's just I for whatever reason I just don't love it. But regardless of how I do the video, when I do that interview, I then turn it into probably 7 different pieces of content. We'll do the full video on Facebook, we'll do the Facebook Live when we originally do it. We'll do an edited version on Facebook that's the full interview. We'll do 3 cuts that are 2 minutes or less so that we could boost those out on Facebook and Instagram to try to drive traffic to the YouTube full interview. We do the YouTube full interview. We do a page on a website so that Google knows it exists. And we do an audio file with it on the podcast as well. So just that one interview. And remember, I'm just doing the interview, right? Once I do the interview, I get the team, either the video or the audio or both, and then they take it from there. But that one piece of content, and I could probably turn that into 20 pieces of content if I really wanted to, but it could be 7 pieces of content. I could probably use it across 10 different platforms if I really wanted to. We focus entirely on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and a little bit on LinkedIn, but not a ton. But those are our main focuses. If I wanted to put it on Pinterest, I could. If I wanted to put it on Twitter, I could. If I wanted to put it on LinkedIn, I could. But make sure that if you're making, especially those bigger pieces of content, that you're using them not only across the platforms, but you're chopping them up and getting some more micro content out of those. The other thing that content allows you to do and that you can leverage is building custom audiences. So when you are creating content, let's say you're creating content around ear infections, and you do, let's say you do 3 videos around ear infections. You can push the one that you think is the best out there that's going to get the most interactions, and you can push that out on Facebook. Let's just use Facebook for an example. So custom audiences are mainly for Facebook and Instagram for this conversation. But basically what that is that Facebook knows everything that someone does on their platform. So it knows who clicks on what, who watches what, how long they watch it for, what actions they take. So what you're able to do is when you send out that first video on ear infections, now when you do the second video, and you want to boost that out, you can use that audience that has been built over people that watched that first video. Sorry, I have a new puppy and she is going a little crazy. If she barks again, I'm gonna have to give me 1 second. I'm just gonna let her out. That's a girl. Oh man, I was hoping we could make it all the way through without her going crazy, but she's not the most well-trained dog in the world. So with Facebook and with Instagram, they know what you're doing. They know what it is that you can tell them, hey, if somebody watched this, make sure that you show them that, right? And oh boy, hold on 1 second. I feel for all of you that have children that you're trying to take care of while you're trying to work from home as well. So those custom audiences are that's going to be what allows you to continue the conversation. So whether this is custom audiences within Facebook or Instagram, whether you're pixeling people that have gone to your website, just making sure that you are continuing that conversation throughout the process. And this is what allows you to build that relationship. And you can show people the content that they have told you that they want to consume. People can say things all they want. Like, this is what I think would be a good idea. But people's actions are what really matter. And that's the nice part about custom audiences, is it's based all around what the actions of a person actually are versus the words that they say. And then the last tip is, don't try to do it all yourself. So a lot of you, I know, this is what your organizational chart looks like in your practice, because this is what mine looked like for the first couple years of my practice. I ended up giving myself a heart attack at 30 because I was trying to run 2 practices, not having any idea what I was doing, from the stress of just like trying to learn business, trying to like figure out how to have employees, and it just became a madness. And that's how I ended up where I'm at today, where I get to do the things that I like to do, because I know that if I try to do the things I don't like to do, they're either not going to get done or I'm going to burn myself out trying to get them done. So this is probably the biggest thing that I can recommend to anybody that is trying to be consistent with their content, is only do the things that only you can do. So what I mean by that is, like, if somebody else can edit the video, have them do it. If somebody else can post it to Facebook, have them do it. The only thing that only you can do is really creating the content. The rest of it can be done by your team. It can be done by outsourced people. You can work with a company like ours. But where you're going to get energy from creating content is just focusing on the stuff that you like to do. Now, if you like editing video and that's like fun for you, then add that onto the list. But somebody else could do it, and most of us have more money than we have time. And so I strongly recommend to just like outsource things. Like, I'm always overstaffed in like every business I'm a part of, because I know that things are way more likely to get done if I have implementers that surround me to make sure that things actually happen. Because I'm a visionary. I like coming up with the ideas. These are the things that only I can do, but there's lots of people that can do the stuff that I have done by other people. And most of those things are commodities. Like, you can find video editing done on Fiverr, in India, pretty cheap. So as long as you give them some guidance or you have some kind of framework, it's not that hard to get done. Be sure to utilize your team. So there are people that work for you right now that enjoy doing this stuff. They would love to have like another opportunity to help the practice, or to maybe make a couple extra dollars, things they can do, in the evening or on the weekends. And it's like, you don't have to force them to do it, but if they want to do it, like, I would make sure that you utilize the genius that's within your team, because the team really understands the fabric of the practice more so than, say, somebody that you outsource the work to. Now, your team's not always going to have like some big elaborate strategy for you, but there are going to be things that they can definitely help with. Like, we have an in-office marketing director for my practice. And she does things that I live 3 hours away from my practice, and I'm only there 3 days a month. She does things for my practice on a day-to-day basis in terms of marketing that I wouldn't be able to do on my own because I'm not physically there. So be sure that the people that enjoy social media personally, that you're trying to utilize those people within your team. And then utilize experts. People like me. This is all I do every day. This is all my team does every day. So we're going to be a lot better at this than you and your outsourced people and your team. So there are things that there's a place for all of those people within a perfect world. But being able to work with, like I said, somebody like me that has the understanding of what it takes to market a chiropractic practice and the vision and the ideas and the strategy, and then I have a team that all we do is execute for chiropractic offices when it comes to content creation. It's hard to really put a price on what we bring to the table for people that maybe aren't getting these things utilized. So the things that really set us apart from other marketing agencies, our number one is that we only serve chiropractors. So that's my specialty. That's the thing I know about. That's the thing that I do. If I spent a lot of chiropractic, as you probably know, is difficult to market sometimes. People want certain services or want certain products. Chiropractic is something that they need, but it's not always something that they want. So it becomes difficult. That's why chiropractic marketing is so focused on like the bottom of the funnel, because it's easiest just to look for people that have already decided that they want and need chiropractic. What we're looking to do is we're looking to try to help chiropractors create patients out of thin air, because we're educating our communities versus just serving them up ads for a discount new patient special. So if I had to spend my time trying to figure that out for dentists or insurance agents or oil change places, it would take my focus away from chiropractic, which is hard enough. The other thing that's different is that I actually own an office, and I'm actually a chiropractor, which I think there's a couple of chiropractors out there that do marketing for people, but really all they do is just a Facebook ad as well. And almost, I can't think of any of them that are chiropractors that actually still practice. So I'm doing this. My office is my laboratory. And so what that means is that we're always changing, we're always adapting to keep up, because not only do these platforms change, but the way that people interact on the platforms also change. So as this becomes less effective, we need to shift over to something that we're on the way up. That way we stay ahead of the curve and we move where the puck's going instead of always reacting to something that has changed about Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. The other thing is that we have an omni-channel approach. We are not just running Facebook ads. So we have a Facebook strategy, Instagram strategy, YouTube, your website, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of this, Google, all of these things and how they work together so that there's a cohesive strategy, there's a coherent strategy versus just like throwing stuff at the wall because you work with this guy over here on Facebook and this guy over here on your website and this guy over here on YouTube and you never, like nothing's ever speaking to each other. So we try to take a holistic 360 view. So a lot of people know Dr. Dane, Dr. Alex, both are great at creating content, but they either weren't creating enough before working with us or they just didn't know exactly what to do with the content when they actually created it. And so just working with us allowed them to get more structure to it and also get it more distributed. This guy is a chiropractor in the middle of Iowa. He's in a town of 2,300 people surrounded by Amish communities, so not exactly like a prime digital marketing strategy. And if all we did was run Facebook ads, we wouldn't even be able to take him as a client because there aren't enough people to just generate leads off of some $21 new patient special. But because of the content strategy and because he has so few people around him, basically everybody in his community sees every one of his videos, and he has started to be able to influence, and he's on, I think, year 3 now, to where he's now able to influence people in a way that he was never able to do before working with us. Heather Rice is one of my favorites. She's kind of my patron saint of had no idea what she was doing when she first started. And a lot of chiropractors are like this. They're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. It's so overwhelming. They never start. And with her, she just followed the rules and she kind of worked through the hiccups early on. And now she also is in year 3 and is just kicking ass because she's following the process and she's focusing on the things that only she can do. So we, like I said earlier, we do a strategy session as kind of like a first step of working together with people. But even if we never worked, I have lots of people that do strategy sessions that I never work with. But it's a ton of value because I really don't talk about what we do at Leverage Media. All I do is give you an analysis. It's kind of like the day one in our practice. I just give you an analysis of like, what is it that you're doing right now online across all of it? And what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? And what are opportunities you're missing out on? So for the first, I only have so much space available. There's a lot of people on this webinar. So I only have so much space available in my schedule. So the first 10 qualified offices get a free strategy session with me. If you go to contentintoPatients.com, you can fill out a real short application, give me an idea where you're at in practice, what you're doing, what you want to do, and then you can pick a time that works best for you. And then I always like to tell people about this because I think there's so much value in this interview. But I've talked about my podcast. The first guest, if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, he was kind enough to be my kickoff guest. And so I think I ended up getting squeezing 15 minutes out of him. But basically what I did is I had him, I'd never heard him talk about specific advice for a chiropractor, like running the business of it and what he would do if he was running the practice. And I went through the different stages of growing your practice to $1 million and beyond. And it was just such a great interview. So if you want to get access to that, if you go to GaryVinterview.com, you can opt in for that as well. And I strongly recommend anybody do that. So like I said at the beginning, BJ was the original content marketer for chiropractic. And if all of us just did our part, I always say this, if every chiropractor who owned a practice, there's 80 chiropractors in my town, let's say that there's 60 practices. If each one of us as practice owners spent at least $1,000 to create content and boost that out, that Springfield, Illinois, a town of 110,000 people, which means there's about 50,000 actual adults between the ages of 25 and 64. If all of us were creating content and we were spending $60,000 to get the message of chiropractic out, however we individually want to talk about that, but just the message of chiropractic getting out to our community's health would look very different than it looks right now. We have the truth. We have what we think of as it's like our secret. It's like our little precious. We don't want to tell people unless it's done through spoken word, word of mouth. We're expecting our patients to go get our next patient. And that's not the way it should be. We have too many tools at our disposal now to get our messages out into our communities and change the lives that we are meant to impact. So please be the BJ Palmer of your community and start getting your message out, getting the chiropractic message out and what the chiropractic lifestyle is all about. So Christy, I so appreciate you having me, and if there's any questions, I would love to answer anything that anybody's got.
Thank you so much, Nick. What an incredible presentation. I love it. I love anytime we get to talk about content marketing because right now in the months that we have experienced during this pandemic with COVID, there's really never been a better time to be on social media, especially because people are sitting at home like this.
Yep.
And they can either be looking at your information and what you're putting out there, or they can be looking at somebody else, your competitor down the street. A lot of chiropractors think of chiropractors as their competition. We see 10% of the population. We are not each other's competition. We couldn't handle everybody if they all wanted to come in at once. What our competition is the status quo, is them doing nothing. Your patients are just doing nothing. And so you are giving them the opportunity to make a better decision for your life. The reason why we all love speaking and spinal screenings is because we get to influence that one person that's sitting in the crowd or sitting in that stool. Social media gives you the opportunity to do that with thousands, if not tens of thousands of people with every one of your messages. And I love that you said that because I don't ever think of our competition, because we have 2 clinics, as being other chiropractors down the road. I think of it as other healthcare practitioners.
But even they're not doing anything. That's what I'm saying. It's like pharmaceutical commercials and nothing are really our competition. That's pretty much it.
You know, it's funny is that I talk to people all the time, especially when they have new pharmaceutical commercials, because it's like a train wreck. You can't take your eyes off of it.
Mhm.
They start listing the side effects, and it makes you wonder who willingly takes these pills.
Right.
Because some of those side effects sound way worse than what they
Yeah.
what
Like if one of the side effects could be immediate death, like I'm good. Like I'll deal with my depression or whatever.
exactly. But that's so funny because that's what we see. I don't see any questions coming through.
Right.
But I will say this. So y'all, there's a little offers tab. If you click on that, you can click the little thing that says, you know, learn more about scheduling a strategy session with Dr. Nick. So click on that button and it'll take you right to the website that he mentioned. I just want to remind you, next week we have Dr. Jay Greenstein coming to talk to us. Again, it's like we never can stop talking about COVID and preparing for the fall just in case. We don't really know what's going to happen. We sure as heck did not anticipate the last 90 days of our lives and our businesses and all the upheaval that we experienced. And not knowing what's going to happen in the future, we're doing our best to provide some information to help you to better prepare. And that's exactly what Dr. Jay Greenstein is going to be doing. He's going to be talking to you about the fundamentals that allow you to build a strong practice with clearly identified strategies and business goals, so that in the event that we experience this in the fall or at a later time, you are better prepared. Because let's be honest, most everybody in the entire country was not prepared. We're not just talking about chiropractors, we're talking about everybody. So I really encourage you to go to the website, ChiroHealthUSA.com/webinars. Check it out. This webinar is being archived, so it will be available online. You'll be able to access it from Facebook because we're fixing to post a video about what did I learn from Dr. Nick today.
There you go.
Make sure you like it. Peddling for likes here. Anyway, I just want to thank you all for being a part of the webinar series today, Dr. Nick. Thank you so much. I love it when we get together online and chit chat. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I will see you soon.
Yeah.
In the city somewhere. And not just
If
online.
not, I'm heading down to Mississippi. They probably got it wide open down there.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, here in Mississippi, you know how it is. You know how it is in the South, actually. I don't even know what I'm telling you. So, y'all have an amazing rest of your day and a fabulous week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.